Hi, I'm Glenn Hughes.
And I'm Ed Muzio.
For 3 decades, I've been working inside a publicly traded company.
And for over a decade, I've been an entrepreneur supporting companies like Glenn's from the outside.
In this series, we look at the problems and challenges of the modern workplace
And provide our ideas and advice.
From the inside
and out. As an external, I'm often asked questions about other companies. What's it like over there compared to here? And oftentimes those questions take the form of money. What's the pay like over there? Sometimes embedded in that is an issue of, I feel like I'm not paid enough over here relative to other people. So, Glenn, why am I not paid enough money compared to other people around me?
You're not worth it, Ed. Let's get serious about it, though. There's 2 ways to look at this, and I think one interesting way is, what do you mean by money? Right, and putting that in context. And the other way is to just take a step back, because people take money very personally, and say it's not personal.
So it's really, the answer is it's not personal. You're paid at what the market will bear, more or less. And one way to say that is you're still there working, therefore they're paying you essentially the right amount. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's supply and demand, very simply. If I believe that I can meet my supply at the current wage in this company, then I'm not going to pay a penny more for it. So basically the model is built so that I have a role, let's say it's a tech support engineer, and I'm going to baseline a salary that I think will attract people. If it doesn't attract them, I'll raise that number. If it over attracts them, I'll lower that number. Once they're in the system, then I'm going to decide whether it's retaining them or not. And if it's not retaining them, I'll increase it. And if it is retaining them, I'll keep it the same. Those are the inputs and outputs. And we make decisions based on the diversity of skills within tech support. But fundamentally, that's it. It's not about you.
Now, you're making an assumption even in that, which is you're talking about people in the same role. How about when somebody says, I'm working just as hard as the guy next to me, but he's making twice as much money as I am, and the answer might be different degree, different skill, different anything. Again, it's supply and demand, but if you have a very specialized skill, you may get a lot more, even if it required the same amount of training as a less specialized skill or a less in-demand skill, right? Are you seeing that inside your work?
Well, I see it in a couple of ways. One is this, why do they get paid so much, right? And I think that's just a matter of education. You need to understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they put into that. But again, you need to back up. Maybe they're a lot harder to get and a lot harder to keep. Supply and demand again. I think there's another version of that, which is just moaning, that those guys over there make a lot more than me and don't work as hard as me. Interestingly, when you say to them, then they have an opening, go apply for that job. They go, oh, I wouldn't work there in a million years, right? Supply and demand. So this whole thing comes around.
Well, and there's something, too, about even outside of supply and demand, I think. There is a human tendency to do the we, they thing and to do grass is greener kind of thing. I can point to examples from a number of clients where there was a real legitimate need to get groups to understand each other, and instead the groups were sort of kind of saying, you don't understand, our work is harder, our lives are more difficult, you need to understand us better. Yeah. And I think the pay, as you pointed out before, being kind of a scorecard, the money is kind of a version of that too. Clearly there's some inequity here, and that's an easy one to point to. Have you seen other things on that topic that are real inequities that aren't money related that might come back as complaints about pay?
Well, yeah, I think all pay conversations start somewhere along that thing of, you couldn't pay me to do that, or what you often hear is, wow, I can't believe I get paid to do this, right? And so I think that's sort of at the core of everything, is if you don't like the work, you want more money for it. And if you love the work, you're happy with it, right? And I think you do external work. I do occasional external work.
We're getting paid to do this.
And we set our number not just to make money, but also to reject business.
Right.
Right? And so if you raise your money, you'll get less hours, but you'll gate out the work you don't want. And I think that's the same thing, is when you're interviewing, everyone out there has turned down jobs where they said the money wasn't enough, but what they were really saying is the exchange wasn't motivating for me personally. And that's what it is. It's an exchange.
So you have the thing you say, which I love, which is when the employee leaves for work at the end of the day and the manager doesn't say anything, they've offered them the job for the morning. And when the employee comes in the morning, they've accepted the job for the day. Yeah. And that's the exchange. Every single day you make the exchange. And so if you really feel the money's wrong, you should be looking.
Yes.
If you're just complaining, maybe you're just complaining. But I think that's kind of where I start when someone starts complaining to me, is I start trying to figure out, is there a source behind the complaint different than money, or is it really a underpayment issue, and I've done the research, and then that's a kind of very different conversation.
Yeah, as you point out, what I say is the minute your badge hits the door and it unlocks, you've accepted the offer that day in the same way you accepted your initial offer as a new hire. Except this time you actually know everything. You know your manager, you know your work, you know your salary, you know the ins and outs, you know the flaws, you know the strengths.
No surprises, that's right.
There's no surprises. So the minute you badge and step in, your engagement should be way higher than a new hire because you know everything. And if you don't want that, don't badge through the door. Turn around, go back to your car, and send a note that you're resigning.
So every morning you accept your job. Every morning I accept my job as an external. And maybe it's time to put it back to the audience and say, every morning you accept your job too. Is it the right money? If it doesn't feel like the right money, is money the issue, or is there something else you're really complaining about?